So when I joined Motor Trend, I knew that I wanted to get myself a classic car. It reawakened my desire to own a 1960s Mustang, which is exactly what I'm in today. This is a 1966 Ford Mustang 289. And we're going to get through this intersection. Woo! Haha! Anyways. So there's some things I learned when trying to buy a classic car. You don't necessarily know when you're looking for a regular car or used car. There's some standard things that apply to every car that you would want to get, including used cars. Number one, always find a mechanic. Find a mechanic who can go over the car. It's always worth it to have somebody take a look at your car and tell you what's wrong. Because you will find horror stories online about classic cars that are nothing more than Bondo and newspaper, polished nicely and painted beautifully. And then when you drive it, the entire, visual look of the car, it breaks into pieces, which is just unbelievably sad if you can imagine having that happen to you. Don't buy a car from the Midwest. This is an obvious one because it'll be rusted to pieces. But if you want to find a mechanic, the best way to do it is to figure out what brand of car you want to look at. For me, it was a Ford Mustang. And then I looked in the Seattle area for a Ford Mustang club, a motor club that could direct me towards somebody who was a great mechanic. What you do then is you take your car to a mechanic. You pay maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe more to have them just look it over. Ideally, if they can work with you and show you what's going on with the car while they're going through it and point out everything. If the first car you bring to them isn't one that you end up buying, at least you'll learn what to look for in further, when you're looking at the next car. So you can avoid bringing every car to the mechanic. I mean, obviously, some things you're going to look for is, does it run? Does it start up? How hard is it to crank? Look, this car is over 50 years old. It took 3 tries to just get it to turn over. And then once it starts pumping, it starts running fairly well. It's not going to be perfect. But what does it need? Does it need new gaskets? How are the hoses? All the basics. Get up under the car. You've got to look for rust. You've got to look for anything that might be a really big expense or just catastrophic. Like, that is the worst thing you can possibly get. Now, when I got this car, I went out and met the lady, and I knew right away that it was going to be a good deal. At least I thought so. She was told by her husband that she needed to sell one of her project cars before she could start her next project car. Well, that's a pretty good sign. If you've got multiple project cars out in the yard, in your barns, in your garages, then you're really attached to them. She was literally in tears giving me this car, and it almost broke my heart. Not too much, because I really enjoy the car. But it was so nice to have that. She left a card in the glove box. Oh, by the way, another good sign. She had all of the receipts for all of the repair work for the car. And, as it happens, that happened to be one of the mechanics that this car had gone and seen before, is one that I took it to afterwards to get things fixed. It just worked out beautifully. She also had a log of everything inside the car or every stop and every service that the car needed. It was well taken care of. I feel very fortunate, but now I know those are things you want to look for. If it doesn't start, if you have mechanical problems, just be aware how much it's going to cost to get these things fixed. So, key again, figure out what brand you're looking for, what year, range. Go find an auto club if you can nearby that can direct you towards the mechanic that's going to help you take care of the car going forward. I now have a mechanic who can help me with the car. I like to do stuff myself, but there's a lot of things I just don't have time to do. So find that mechanic, find that auto club, and then start your search for a car. I won't go into the negotiation process, but once you do, you'll get an idea. Even the mechanic may give you a good idea how much the car is actually worth. And it depends on what you're looking for. If you're really looking for a show car that is pristine, that is perfect, that you can take to auto shows and just they sit there. It's a piece of art. If you're buying a piece of art, it's different than I bought this. This is, it's a piece of art, but it's regular art. I guess it's drivable art, as opposed to ones that you really don't want to take it out on the road because something might happen. But anyways, trying to do this stream of thought, but we may have to cut a little bit here. I really do think that it's an interesting thing, and I don't even know how I'll use this. Tomorrow, we'll figure it out. So maybe someday I'll do a little bit on my video setup and how I was able to get this all done inside the car and make the switches between the different cameras as well as what's being recorded up front. It's a little gray and overcast, and clearly it had been sunny earlier. I thought I'd rush out and record some things, and I'd drive through the very, very nice neighborhood up here. It's not, it's nearby, but it's a pretty area. And, it's a joy to drive. I have a lot of fun. Look, there's still snow on the houses up here. Nice. Well, some pretty decent houses. All right. So, and by the way, once you own a classic car, you do need to take it out every so often, even for a short drive during lunch, which is essentially what this is. I had to take it out. I wanted to record some things, which takes a little bit of extra setup, but driving it, getting the fluids running over the engine, making sure that everything's working properly, inflating the tires, checking the oil, at least a couple times a month, ideally, and just making sure that it doesn't, rust out, seize up, or any of the bad things that can happen when a car just sits for way too long. Battery goes dead, you can't start it. Taking it out for a drive for a while keeps it healthy. They don't like to sit still. And we're definitely not sitting still.